Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Muhammad. This is Heavy Metal FPL, and in this video I'm gonna talk through my transfer decisions for game week 21. Now before I do that, I want to give a quick recap of game week 20. It was a high scoring game week in general, and I think it was a fun one as well because a lot of the good assets in FPL ended up performing very well. I made one transfer for game week 20, and that was Hwang to BOWEN. Hwang was leaving for AFC and he still is, so that ended up being not a very good one in terms of short term because Hwang ended up getting more points than BOWEN, but I still think it's a good long term one. Now, for each of my team members, I've got Leno in goal. He ended up getting nothing, and that just continues my goalkeeper curse, but that's not something that I want to deal with at this point because I've got bigger priorities. In defense, Saliba was part of Arsenal's disappointing loss to Fulham, so he got 0 points. Pedro Porro ended up getting no returns, and also Trent surprisingly ended up getting no returns in Liverpool's 4-2 win against Newcastle. Now, where my player is actually shown was in midfield and in attack. So Cole Palmer was the best performing one with an 18-pointer. He was brilliant. Gordon got me 5 points. I've got Salah. He was my captaincy choice amongst the many that were there for game week 21. He got 16 points, and that ended up getting me 32 points because he was captained. That helped me advance in my mini leagues and also in my overall ranking. I am now at 433k. And it's not exactly where I want it to be, but I'll still take it for now. It's a big green arrow to end 2023, and hopefully those green arrows will keep coming in 2024. My aim was to get under 100k by the end of the year, but I'll take it for now, and we'll see if we can keep increasing it, and hopefully we'll be under 100k by the end of the season. Now, Son also ended up getting a return for a 9-pointer, and BOWEN was surprisingly disappointing because the fixture of West Ham and Brighton was expected to be a high-scoring one, but it ended up being a boring 0-0 draw where Brighton got their first clean sheet of the season, which makes this even more surprising. But just looking at it in hindsight, West Ham were without some of their creative outlets. Lucas Paqueta was missing for that match, so that could have contributed to why they ended up not looking very good in attack. Now, in my forward lineup, I had Alvarez and Watkins. Alvarez broke his scoring duck and he ended up scoring a goal penalty against Everton in Man City's 3-1 win. And Watkins finally ended up getting 2 assists to wrap up my game week with 85 total points. Now, I think the best way for an FPL manager to come to the decisions of his transfers is to look at the weaknesses in his team. Now, in my case, I've got a few tiers of weaknesses. I'm going to start with tier 1, which is in the form of Salah and Son. Both of these players are missing due to AFCON and AFC, and both of their national teams are expected to advance far in those competitions. So I would expect Salah and Son to be missing for at least 3 game weeks, which means that they are currently a weakness in my team, which I have to address. And I think that they're going to be my main priorities to address when it comes to my transfer decisions. Now, tier 2 is in the form of BOWEN and Trent. I wasn't expecting to deal with this, but they are both out for a few weeks. Now, the timing of this is kind of good, and it's kind of in my favor, or whoever might have those 2 players in their teams, because right now we've got the game week 21 deadline coming up tomorrow, and then this game week extends for 2 weeks. And the game week deadline for game week 22 is going to be on January the 30th, which means that both of these players have a lot of time to recover, and hopefully they should be ready by then and they won't miss out on a lot of playtime. Now, the third tier of my weaknesses is in the form of Taylor, the first player on my bench. But according to Vincent Company, he will be reassessed before their match against Luton at home, a very, very good one, which will come up in game week 22. Now, one thing that is in my way before making a transfer decision is just the uncertainty over Haaland returning. Now, we don't have much news on that, and whatever news comes out of Pep is always, something that should be taken with a grain of salt all the time. but I don't think he's going to be starting in game week 21. The news isn't very reassuring, and I think that when he does come back, he's going to be eased back into the squad rather than be put in the starting lineup immediately. So that being said, I've got four potential replacements for Salah and Son, who are my main weaknesses. Now, if you want to see all the options for replacing Salah and Son, which might work for you, I've got a link to the video where I've gone through about 10 options for replacements. So make sure to check that out. Now, for me personally, I'm looking at these four options because I think that they're the best attacking assets for the best attacking teams in the Premier League. I added in Saka there because I just think he's more of a safe choice. But to me, honestly, I think he's a bit of a boring pick because he's owned by a lot of people and he's also playing for an Arsenal side that are looking a little bit timid in attack. That being said, he could punish me, but I'm just willing to go for a more exciting pick in the form of the other three that are on this list. Now, I've got Jota, who's very, very explosive. I'm very tempted to go for him. I've also got Richarlison, who could be explosive playing for an attacking Tottenham side. And I've also got Foden, who might be a bit of a rotation risk because Kevin De Bruyne is coming back. But the latest reports from De Bruyne himself are saying that he is not expecting to play a lot of games. So I'm willing to risk it on Foden, even though he might be rotated in some matches. Now, with all of that being said, this is how my team could potentially line up for game week 21. There are a couple of things that I want to address, three things in particular. First off is that I've got Bowen and Trent on my starting lineup. Why? Because if by some miracle of modern science, both of those players are available for their game, which is going to be next week, by the way, so they do have some time to recover, I like them both being on my starting lineup because I like their fixtures and I just like their potential. And I think that if they were fit to play, they would be put straight into that starting lineup. And that's why I've got Bowen and Trent there rather than any of my bench options. I like them much, much more. Second thing I want to address is that I've got Jota and Foden in my team. Both of those are unconfirmed transfers. I like Jota a lot because he's a very explosive pick and I think he'll be a key part of Liverpool's attack with Salah being missing. Though I think he's still a potential, he's got a slight potential for rotation, which is a little bit of a worry for me. Now, I like Foden more than Richarlison because I think that Man City will be less affected by AFCON than Tottenham. None of Man City's players are going to be leaving for AFCON, so I think it doesn't affect their attack whatsoever, the fact that that competition is ongoing. Whereas Tottenham, a lot of their midfielders and a lot of their key players are missing for AFCON, which I think is going to make their attack a little less effective than it usually is, even with their attacking strategy and everything. That's what edges Foden out for me over Richarlison, though I think that Richarlison is still a very, very good pick. I still have to make my choice between him and Foden, and in this case I'm going to pick Foden. I have to apologize for the construction. It's been going on for a million years outside my house. Now, the third thing I want to address is my bench. I've got Taylor as the first sub on my bench because he plays at home against Luton. Now, Burnley are a good attacking team when they're up against a team of a similar caliber, and I think there is potential for Taylor to shine in that fixture against Luton. That's why he is my first sub. Now, my second and third subs are Trippier versus Man City, where he'll be facing them at home, and I've got Archer, who's also playing at home versus West Ham United. I think both of those are, there's not so much potential there. But I'm picking Trippier due to his history, and I just think there's a lot more potential for him to maybe come up with a return against Man City, though I'm not so hopeful for it. That wraps it up for this video, guys. If you haven't checked out my video where I dissect each of Salah and Son's potential replacements, make sure to click on the link above. Other than that, I'm going to have one more short before the Game Week 21 deadline, and that'll be to discuss captaincy. I think it's going to be a very interesting one this week. That'll come out tomorrow, and you'll have a lot of time to decide on your captaincy before the deadline. Until then, I wish you the best of luck and hopefully a green arrow for Game Week 21, and I will see you all soon.